You're not in love, you're hooked. And the worst part, it feels exactly the same. That's not a metaphor. That's not poetic exaggeration. That is literally what's happening inside your brain when you can't stop thinking about someone, even when they hurt you, even when you know somewhere deep down that this isn't good for you, even when every rational part of you is exhausted. You already know something is off. You can feel it. But understanding why you can't just walk away, that's what nobody explains clearly enough. So let's do that now. There's a reason the word chemistry exists in the context of attraction. People say it casually, we just had chemistry, without realizing how precise that word actually is. Because what they're describing isn't some mystical connection. It's a neurochemical event, a biological process. And like any process, it can be understood. When you meet someone who activates you, someone unpredictable, intense, magnetic, your brain doesn't just respond with warmth, it responds with dopamine. And dopamine is not a happiness chemical. That's the popular misconception. Dopamine is an anticipation chemical. It's the chemical of wanting, not of having. This distinction changes everything. Think about it this way. Dopamine doesn't spike when you feel safe and loved consistently. It spikes when something is uncertain, when the outcome isn't guaranteed, when you don't know if the call is coming, when you don't know if they're angry at you, when you're waiting for a text that may or may not arrive. That uncertainty, that tension, is what activates the reward system at full intensity. And here's where the pattern locks in. When that person finally does respond, when they call, when they're warm again, when they pull you back in after a period of distance, the relief you feel is enormous, disproportionate, far bigger than it would be if they had just been consistently present. That spike in relief, that's the reward. And your brain registers it deeply. It remembers, this person is associated with one of the most intense feelings I've ever had. Not the pain, the relief from the pain. That's the hook. This is the part no one notices. You're not addicted to the person. You're addicted to the cycle. You're addicted to the alternation between tension and release, between distance and closeness, between confusion and clarity. The person themselves is almost secondary. What you're really attached to is the neurological pattern they've activated in you. And that pattern, it's almost identical to the pattern of substance addiction. This isn't a harsh comparison, it's a clinical one. Researchers studying romantic obsession have found activation in the same brain regions associated with cocaine dependence, the same areas, the same circuitry, the same compulsive craving for the next hit. The hit just happens to be a person. Let's slow down here, because this is where most people get stuck. When we think of addiction, we think of weakness. We think of a lack of willpower. We think of something shameful. And so when someone experiences this kind of emotional dependency, they often frame it as a personal failure. Why can't I just move on? Why do I keep going back? What's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's following a reward system that was shaped over hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. A system built for survival, not for modern relationships. The problem isn't your character. The problem is that you're running ancient software in a context it wasn't designed for. Now let's talk about what actually sustains this pattern, because it doesn't sustain itself randomly. There's a specific mechanism. It's called intermittent reinforcement. In behavioral psychology, intermittent reinforcement refers to a reward schedule where the reward is delivered inconsistently, not every time, not never, sometimes, unpredictably. And what researchers discovered, starting with B.F. Skinner's work in the mid-20th century, is that intermittent reinforcement produces the most persistent, most resistant to extinction behavior of any reward schedule. Not consistent reward, not consistent punishment, inconsistency. When a rat receives food every time it presses a lever, it presses the lever calmly. It learns quickly and stops when the food stops. When a rat receives food randomly, Sometimes on press 3, sometimes on press 40, sometimes not at all. Something different happens. The rat presses obsessively. It cannot stop. Even when the food stops coming entirely, the behavior continues far longer than in any other condition. That rat is not weak. It's responding to the most powerful behavioral conditioning mechanism we know. And you are doing the same thing. If this resonates with you, it's worth paying attention. Subscribe if you want more conversations like this, and tell me in the comments what stood out to you. The person who sometimes makes you feel incredible and sometimes disappears, who sometimes pursues you intensely and sometimes acts like you don't exist, who sometimes communicates beautifully and sometimes goes cold with no explanation. That's not passion. That's an intermittent reinforcement schedule. And your nervous system has responded to it the only way a nervous system can, by becoming fixated, by making that person the central object of your attention, your anticipation, your mental energy. This feels like love, because love also involves deep attention to another person. It involves thinking about them, wanting to be close to them, caring about their responses. But the mechanism underneath is entirely different. Love is built on security, on consistent presence, on a pattern of reliability that teaches your nervous system, this person is safe, I can relax here. Addiction is built on activation, on the cycle of craving and relief, on a pattern of unpredictability that keeps your nervous system permanently alert, permanently searching. One expands you, the other consumes you. Here's something that's uncomfortable to sit with. Intensity is not connection. This is one of the most important psychological distinctions you can make, and most people never make it. Because from the inside, intensity feels profound. It feels meaningful. It feels like evidence that something real is happening. The highs are higher, the lows are lower, everything feels more significant. But what you're measuring isn't depth of connection. You're measuring neurological activation. You're measuring the amplitude of the emotional cycle. And a relationship with enormous amplitude is not the same as a relationship with genuine intimacy. In fact, they're often inversely related. The relationships with the most explosive chemistry are frequently the ones with the least actual safety, the least actual knowing of each other, the least actual capacity to be truly present, because the drama fills the space where intimacy would otherwise have to grow. This is where people get stuck. When a calmer, more consistent relationship comes along, one without the highs and lows, one without the constant activation, it doesn't feel like love. It feels flat. It feels like something is missing. And in a certain sense, something is. The neurological stimulation is missing. The dopamine spike is missing. The adrenaline of uncertainty is missing. But that's not love that's missing. That's the addiction. Your system has been calibrated to a certain level of activation. And anything below that threshold registers as absence, as boredom, as lack of connection. This is why people leave stable relationships for chaotic ones and call it following their heart. This is why people return to relationships that have harmed them and say they can't help it. This is why people describe someone who treats them poorly as the most magnetic person they've ever encountered. You're not confused, you're calibrated. Let's go one layer deeper. There's another element operating underneath all of this, and it has to do with the self. When you're in this kind of cycle with someone, a significant portion of your psychological energy is directed outward, toward them, trying to read them, trying to predict them, trying to understand why they're warm today and cold tomorrow, trying to figure out what you did or didn't do, trying to manage the uncertainty. This is exhausting, but it also serves a function. When all your mental energy is focused on another person's behavior, it's not focused on yourself. For some people, that's a relief, because what lives in that inner space, when they're finally still, when there's no crisis to manage, no one to decode, is uncomfortable, empty, painful. The relationship becomes a way of not being alone with yourself. Not because you're incapable, but because the habit has been to turn outward, to locate your emotional state in the reactions of another person, to feel okay when they're engaged, and to feel wrong when they're distant. This is sometimes called external regulation, and it's one of the core dynamics that makes these patterns so difficult to exit, even when you intellectually understand what's happening. Missing someone doesn't mean they're good for you. This sounds obvious when stated plainly. But in practice, the feeling of missing someone is so often interpreted as evidence of love, as evidence of rightness, as evidence that this person belongs in your life. Missing someone means your brain has associated them with a significant reward. That's all it means. The brain misses the activation. The brain misses the dopamine cycle. The brain misses the relief after the tension. The grief of leaving one of these relationships is real. Don't minimize it. It is a genuine withdrawal experience. The emptiness, the obsessive thinking, the physical ache, these are neurological symptoms, not signs that you made the wrong choice. They're signs that you made a difficult one. So what does this mean practically? What does understanding all of this actually change? It doesn't change the feeling immediately. That would be too easy. But it changes the interpretation. When you understand that the longing you feel is a withdrawal response, not proof of love, you can hold it differently. You're not rejecting love, you're detoxing from a pattern. When you understand that the flatness you feel in a calmer relationship is neurological recalibration, not absence of connection, you can stay with it longer. You can let your system adjust instead of running back to what activated you. When you understand that the person you can't stop thinking about isn't necessarily who you think they are, but rather what they represent neurologically, you can start to separate the person from the pattern. That separation is the beginning of clarity. There's a concept in psychology called emotional object constancy. It refers to the ability to maintain a stable, integrated view of someone even when they're not present, even when they've hurt you, even when your feelings in the moment are negative. People who grew up with inconsistent caregiving, caregivers who were sometimes warm and sometimes cold, sometimes available and sometimes withdrawn, often have difficulty developing this capacity because consistency was never modeled. And so they learn to track the other person's emotional state obsessively because safety depended on it, because knowing whether the caregiver was pleased or displeased was survival-relevant information. That same tracking mechanism gets activated in adult relationships, especially with people who are inconsistent in similar ways. It's not coincidence that certain people are drawn repeatedly to partners who replicate that original pattern. The familiarity of it reads as comfort. The intensity of the attention required feels like love. This is where the pattern locks in at the deepest level. Understanding this doesn't create instant freedom, but it does create something more valuable than quick relief. It creates the ability to witness your own experience without being fully captured by it, to feel the craving and know what it is, to feel the pull and understand its source, to sit with the discomfort of withdrawal without confusing it for a signal that you need to go back. You're not stuck because you're weak. You're stuck because a powerful biological system has been trained to respond to a specific set of stimuli, and untrained systems don't change overnight. But they do change with time, with distance, with new input, with understanding. The activation decreases, the pattern loosens, the nervous system recalibrates. What once felt impossible to live without gradually becomes something else. A lesson, a reference point, a clear example of what intensity looks like and why intensity is not the same as love. This is what the whole conversation comes back to. You are not broken for having experienced this. You are not naive. You are not simply someone who made bad choices. You are someone whose nervous system did exactly what nervous systems do. It attached to what activated it. It craved what it was conditioned to crave. It interpreted relief as reward and confusion as depth. The intelligence isn't in avoiding this pattern entirely. Almost no one does. The intelligence is in recognizing it when you're inside it, in naming what's actually happening, in not building a life around a cycle just because the cycle is familiar. Love doesn't feel like anxiety. Love doesn't feel like constant uncertainty. Love doesn't keep you guessing whether you're enough. That feeling, the one that looks like love, that feels like love, that your whole system insists is love, it isn't. And now you know why.